Hey, how's everybody? Good evening. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to me. I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court decision today that says the NCAA can't stop players from getting paid, college football players primarily. And for one, I don't have a lot of problems with that. But I have, if they're going to do it, they have to do it the right way. In other words, every school has to pay their players the same. The rich schools can't pay more than the poor schools because then you have this. Um, some kid can have a good year at a slower school and say, "Hey, man, I'm going over to UCLA because they'll pay me more money next year." That's if they go. They don't. If they don't go pro. And that's the other thing that if they're gonna do this, if they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna pay you guys X amount of dollars to play for our team. The conditions are that you have to make the team. Uh, I guess you would say the same bullshit that they usually say. You have to maintain a grade average. It's not that hard to do if you're taking phys ed. And then you have to say that they should have to stay there for 4 years. Like they do in basketball. Players come in, they play 1 year, and they go. That can't be allowed to happen to continue. I mean, that has to stop. If they're going to pay these kids, they have to commit to the school for 4 years. They have to sign a contract with heavy penalties if they leave. And they say that's unfair. I don't really care. I think it's because what's going to happen is tuitions are going to go up. The price of game tickets is going to go up. The student experience isn't going to be the same anymore because there's not going to be a lot of money around. All right. Uh, so I say, don't do that. If you're going to go, there's certain restrictions. I mean, if you want to pay them, I have no problem with that, but there have to be restrictions in place. They should be forced to maintain a grade average. If they leave school prior to graduation to go play pro ball, I don't know. You could say, well, they have to be there for at least 2 years or whatever before they can do that. Some sort of restriction in there so that the colleges aren't wasting a lot of money for a kid to come in and play 1 year. And this notion that college kids are starving to death and whatnot, that they need this money because they're not getting any compensation for it. Well, the guys that are complaining about the compensation aren't going to the big powerhouse schools. Or if they are, they can't be that good, all right? Or they piss you off and they didn't get their car, or they didn't get the car they wanted. I can tell you horror stories about smaller schools like Susquehanna University. I could tell you stories about Syracuse University, kids that went there on what they call a full boat scholarship, athletic scholarship, folks. Everything was paid for, room and board, everything was paid for. Um, Hot and cold running women. They could, if you went to school, I had friends of mine in Nebraska. If you went to school in Nebraska, you could basically kill somebody and get away with it. Rape wasn't, rape happened every day, whether it was a cheerleader or some girl in a bar. That's just the way it was. These guys could do whatever they wanted. They owned Lincoln, Nebraska. Because that's back when Nebraska was a great team. Now Nebraska is not such a super powerhouse anymore. I mean, it still fills the stadium every week, but it's not a super powerhouse nationally that it was a few years ago. So they can't really get away with that. So they don't have the same caliber players. These guys that were so souped up on steroids and everything, they would do just about anything. Um, I see colleges ending up being the loser on this. I see the fan base being the loser on this, paying them because I believe that, like I said, I just believe it's going to be hard for the average individual sitting there, like a guy like me. I can't afford to go to a pro game. I go to college games because the ticket's pretty reasonable. Even a small college, it's not cheap, but it's pretty reasonable. And all of a sudden you've got these schools paying these kids. I mean, there's kids playing for. Give you an example. You would, if you're in New Jersey, you would understand the schools I'm talking. Montclair State College, and their kids that are getting paid. You're going to pay their scholarship athletes there that they can earn money. There has to be a scale set up. But again, like I said, if you have a kid that's going to Montclair State and all of a sudden he's starting to play good, what's to stop him from going over to UCLA and getting more money? I mean, it's pretty much the same now. These people that say there's no perks for these kids they just realize, they don't realize athletes are the most, especially football. I guess basketball players are too nowadays. I really don't know. But I know it's always been football players since the advent of pro football and whatnot, since they really came around. It's they're the most spoiled people in the world. When I say spoiled, I don't mean somebody comes over and kisses their ass, but they pretty much get what they want and do whatever they want. They don't even have to go to classes at some schools, depending on what they're studying. It's a shame. And then they'll play 3 years, whatever, and they'll leave because they're afraid of getting hurt. That I understand. Now, the way the situation is now, I don't begrudge them that. I begrudge basketball players, especially the foreign students that come over and play, say for Duke, and they play 1 year, and then they're gone. They're great stars, and they're in the pros the next year. Well, you have to put a stop to that, because if you're going to pay them, they have to stay. They have to commit to a certain amount of time, not a year. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it's going to ruin. I think it'll ruin the game, in the sense that you're going to get strikes, you're going to get all this. They want to unionize. They're going to have all these problems, and these aren't professionals. These are basically amateurs, students, and I guess the Supreme Court wants to take their amateur status away. That's okay. I mean, some of these guys like to compete in other sports for the Olympics, and that's out of the question, I think. The Olympics has to go back to being a pure amateur sport, too, to level the field of competition. Because so long as it stays, Russia started it because their athletes would join the army. They would be listed as soldiers, and they wouldn't work. They'd be training 24 hours a day. Oh, excuse me. I've had a rough week. We don't do that, I know the stories of some of the athletes. I knew some of the athletes that went to the Olympics and whatnot, or tried out for the Olympics, and what they had to go through, the hardships financially and whatnot. They don't have insurance if they get hurt, I like going to watch football at schools like Montclair State. Because those kids knew the odds of those guys going to the pros were about 10 times higher than they were at any other school, average school in the country. And these guys play the game because they love it. They got scholarships because they needed financial assistance, and their athletics helped them. My brother was the same way. My brother had graduated high school, was working in an A&P in Great Neck, Long Island, when the coach at Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy came down, knew him from watching him play high school, came and talked to him and got him a scholarship. Told him he'd have to make all these commitments and whatnot, which was fine. He was more than willing to do it. It turned out he didn't have to because he tore his knee up playing football. But he wanted to go. He wanted to do this whole thing, and they got a scholarship out of it. He got a college education out of it. That's when he found out how smart he really was. It's an amazing thing, I guess you just have to test the kid or push a kid enough, and then you find out how smart he is. Anyhow, I don't know how that will affect the pros. The coaching's going to have to be different if they're getting paid. People are going to want to see winners. So that puts a stress on the recruiting program. I think the athletes themselves are going to be put under stress. I'm talking about right now is strictly football because that's the one I know the most about. Uh, and it's just I see it. The athlete will be stressed to perform. There comes the drugs. There comes the bad decision making. That's all part of what goes on when you start to put money into the game. I don't know whether it's going to happen. I mean, I don't know whether they can work something out. I mean, technically they get paid now. They get a scholarship. They get their books. Most of them, or at least the top ones, always get their books and room and board and everything paid for. So they're, in a sense, they're getting paid as it is, but they want cash in their pockets. They want to buy a house for their mom. Yeah, right. They want to go out and get laid is what it is. I think you're going to see, at least in the beginning, the first couple of years, you'll see it'll be a horror show, a true horror show, till they figure it all out. And I don't have the answers for them. And the same basketball, in a sense, is worse because these kids they come in from other countries and whatnot. They come in, they play 1 year, and then they turn pro. Well, if you've got to pay them, those kids are going to want more money than the guy that's sitting on the bench. And that's where the problems start. This is where problems start. It's in the pros, it's different. You're paid you're a professional athlete. You're not paid to study. You're not getting paid to pretend you're studying or anything like that. You're getting paid to play basketball. If you start paying them in college to play basketball, how do you define it? Is it a stipend that's you give them $100 a week or something like that to go play, whatever? These kids aren't going to want. These kids play basketball. They come out of the ghettos. They come out of some of the worst places in the world. And they start out, they're good enough, they get into camps, they do everything like that because it's all scholarship. Those are the most spoiled athletes in the world in high school. They get anything they want, especially if you go to like Indiana or something. Like football is Texas, basketball is like Indiana. It's like that's high school basketball that's one of the top states in the country for high school basketball. Whether they're that good or not, it's just the level of competition and what it means to everybody in the communities and whatnot. It's a basketball state. You go to Texas, it's a football state. You have Friday night football. You watch the shows Friday Night Lights. That's these kids. That's it. That's their whole life right there. Whatever they're going to do, whatever they're going to have, their history, 20 years from now, what are they going to talk about? They're going to talk about one game that they played. They did this play Friday night, Texas high school football. I've met a couple of pro athletes, pro football players, and they're pretty much the same way. Some, depending on their skill levels and whatnot, that the ones that are at the top, they're not going to talk football all the time. They're going to. I know a couple of them that talk fishing, and I used to hang out with them. And guys like Tom Brady play golf. Tony Romo's an excellent golfer. And they talk that, instead of football until the football season comes around, and then everybody wants to talk football to them. What do you think this is going to happen? What are you going to, it's the same way in a college football team. The coach walks down the street, goes out to dinner, and everybody comes up to him and says, "What do you think, Coach? We're going to do it this year? We got him this year, Coach. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?" I don't know whether these guys the coaches could handle paid players at a college level. A lot of them go to the pros and have a problem with that, dealing with a paid player. Again, they're prima donnas. They have this. You see all those people on the sidelines. They're all like groupies or some. There's a good portion of the people that are on the sidelines that have nothing to do with the team. Brady got in trouble because he used to keep his trainer on this guy he trained with on the side. you know, all the time. I don't know whether he's in Florida, Tampa Bay with them or not. I probably, you know, I mean, these guys get spoiled. These guys want to be catered to, so they bring their posse with them, you know, and they shouldn't be allowed to because they pay for their posses. They comes out of their paychecks. You know, that's why half these guys end up broke because they're supporting everybody else. Muhammad Ali should have been a multi-billionaire, and he wasn't. He's this is you know the boxer Muhammad Ali because he took care of everybody around him, and their families. I mean, he was a good guy, but people took advantage of that. You know. And I guess if they're paid, it's going to be a problem in college. You know, they're going to want their groupies around. You know, you already have at home games. You have something like 100 people dressed for the game, so you've got 100 players on the sideline. What are you going to do if every player wants to have two or three guys, say three guys with them? Now you're looking at 300 people on the sideline that have absolutely nothing to do with the game. Money. So everything's money. I get really tired of that, you know. I think athletes, especially the good ones, and especially at the big colleges and whatnot, are pampered. I know a kid played baseball for, I forget, one of the big colleges that probably out west, I think. I forget where he went to school. I'm thinking more locally, but I can't know where I lived. I lived in New Jersey. I know it wasn't in New Jersey, but I'm thinking more like the East Coast. But anyhow, he signs a contract in high school, and they sent him to the minor leagues, put him on a minor league team. B or C, something like that. Not the double A, you know, A, something like that. And he complained to me how hard it was. He said he was better off in high school. He said in high school they kissed his ass because he was so great. When he got to college, when he got down there, he rode buses, you know, beat up buses, not brand new buses. He didn't. The facilities weren't that great, you know, and he couldn't understand it, you know. He didn't make it. I don't think that had anything to do with it. I don't think he was as good as he thought he was, you know. When you're playing against guys that are in a sport, you know, who are trying to get to the top level in the sport, get a pro contract or get a better contract. You know, they play differently. I remember, I forget who this player was, but one of the announcers was talking about it and said, "Well, we expect to have a great year this year because his contract's up." These players play better when there's money on the line, and if they try to have a great year. You know, I think Rodgers played so good last year. I don't think he played that good, but he made MVP. All right, so and it wasn't about money. It was about keeping his starting position and trying to tell the team they made a mistake by drafting a quarterback. When Favre was the quarterback in Green Bay and they brought Rodgers on, it was the same thing. You know, Favre tried to want it out of Green Bay because he's saying that, you know, this kid isn't, you know, you're taking my job away from me and I'm still able to play. And he was. He went on and played good after that, you know. Joe Montana, he didn't bitch and moan about it or do anything, but he went out and had tried it the best he could. He was all banged up and a little older by the time he went to Kansas City, but, you know, he played. And that's what they do when you get the money coming around. Athletes play differently, you know. When it's a contract year, they play differently. just like in basketball, they play differently in the playoffs. First of all, it's a guaranteed. Every game's a guaranteed national TV. Um, there's all kinds of money on the line. Every game means more. Every game you make, it's in their contracts. It's in the more you win, the more you make. That's what the playoffs are about. The more you play, the more games you're in, the more games you win, the more you make. That's the professional world of basketball. Uh, I mean, there's a ton of basketball players out there that never make it. It's just like there's a ton of football players out there that never make it. They basketball players can go play in Europe, Asia. Uh, they can. There's places that they can go to play and make money. And if they're Americans, and they can get a fairly decent salary, and they're treated pretty good in some places. In some places, it's horrible. It's like the minors in baseball that I was talking about. That's just the way it is. There's no easy answer to this play for pay routine that they're talking about. I know that they've been thinking about it for a couple of years now because I think the NCAA knew it was going to happen, and it's not something that I'm happy about. You know, uh, I like it when I can look at a kid and I know that kid's not really going to is not pro material, even though he's playing on UCLA. He's going to go on and be a doctor or whatever. Those are the guys I love to watch. To go out there and beat the crap out of another guy that's going to get paid $300,000 a year to start. I think athletes are overpaid. I think we should pay more money to teachers. I think teachers are the people that are worth the money. A good teacher is worth 100 Pro Bowl football players. They're the ones that go out and make our leaders, the future leaders. I say good teachers. It's hard to find them now. There's teachers that are adequate, but teachers that excel at it, it's like it's hard to find. But I think they're worth more than athletes. I think doctors get more money than anybody anyhow. Doctors are greedy. They think it's owed to them. But athletes are to me are the epitome of being overpaid. Where's the stress factor? A baseball player may run 300 yards in a game in the space of 2 hours, not counting running on and off the field. Okay. He gets a hit, he has to run. Even when he's doing that, he's standing around half the time. Professional hockey players play 2 minutes and then they're off for I don't know how that works out. I don't skate, so I don't know how hard that really is. I knew a friend of mine that played my friend Wilhelm played high school hockey, club hockey, and he played football too. It wasn't. He said football was worse. It wasn't that hard. Hockey wasn't as hard as everybody made it out to be. But that's again, you go like the New England schools in the schools like in Minnesota, Michigan, and whatnot. They're going to have to pay their hockey players a lot of money to stay. And most of those kids stay there. So I'm really not sure. I think if they don't sign at a high school or something like that, they don't start playing junior league hockey and they go to college. I think most of them finish school. I don't really know. Never seen the statistics on that. I only know. I really only know graduation statistics for certain schools. Most of that's done with basketball. Georgetown, Duke, couple other schools that have a tendency to graduate everybody. But Duke doesn't anymore. They come in and play one and gone. You know, one and gone, one into the pros. You know, it's all about instant gratification. What's another thing we can talk about at another time? But I was surprised to see that the football players are the ones that are leading the push for this to get paid while they're in school, and knowing the ones that I knew and how they were treated, I just couldn't believe that they were. What do they want? What do they want? They want to be millionaires at the age of 17 when they get into college? Because basically that's it. I mean, these kids are pampered. Good athletes are pampered. Don't kid yourself. They get breaks in the grades. They get tutors. They don't have to pay for them. Have a conversation with some of them, and if you take it away from a sports arena where even if you're talking the business end of sports, if you take it away and you want to talk some politics to them, they haven't got a clue. I talk philosophy. I talked to Lawrence Taylor one time. I don't think he could spell philosophy. Not sure I did, to be truthful, but I know he couldn't. He'd have trouble telling you who the governor of New Jersey was. I mean, he thought it was Brennan Byrne after Brennan Byrne was gone because the basketball arena, the arena by the stadium was named after him. So he figured that's. Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know. I say I don't know a lot, and I mean it. I haven't got an answer to this. I think it's a problem. I don't think it's gonna be a good idea. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but and what's gonna take place and how bad it's gonna get. But it's gonna ruin a lot of sports. I think it's going to hurt the small colleges unless there's some sliding scale. And then you're talking about getting the bankers involved in it, Wall Street types or whatnot involved in it. You need some real serious money men that can play these games, But how do you take a small school like they don't like Susquehanna? I think they still play football. They're in Pennsylvania. Montclair State, even Fairfield's basketball teams. How do you field these teams now that you have to pay these athletes? School like Fairfield and Montclair State, they have certain educational standards that they maintain for you to be able to play. Now you got to pay these people. And in order for you to make money, you have to win. You can't go in, with a school that's going 0-28, in football or something, hasn't won a game in 7 years. It's never won a championship, never won anything, never won their division, never even come close to competing for the division. And sit there and say, well, now you've got to pay us more money to be able to watch these losers. And the fans are sitting there and say, wait a minute now, these guys are getting paid. They better start performing. The athlete's not going to change. Just his financial status is going to change, Kind of dumb, I think. But, hey, I'm getting old. I'm going to be gone, so who cares? Two things. I don't think I'm going to live forever, and I'm really not interested in it, looking around the world, I think some people coming up in World War II were starting. There was some old guys sitting around saying the same thing I'm saying. Hey, man, fuck this. Let me go. Okay, coming up to the end of the show. If I could do another night, I would, but I don't have specific times. I don't know what I'm doing, so it's kind of hard for me to schedule something, If I do something, it's going to be spare of the moment. I don't know whether anybody will watch. I don't think anybody watches now, so what's the difference? I have posted videos that I upload. There's about 70 of them. You can check them out. Pretty much the same thing I'm doing here. Not quite as long. I write a blog, that. FloundersGreatAdventure.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm all over the place. But anyhow, that's it. We're going. Ciao.